With all of these coaching changes and whatnot, let's reminisce and go back and ask the question, what made Joe Gibbs so successful in his first year? Hey everybody, welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. My name is Greg, and this channel is dedicated to the Washington Commanders, soon to be one of the best franchises in the league. Yes, you have heard it here, folks. Soon to be one of the best in the league. I just know it. If you like that, folks, please consider subscribing to this channel. When you do, make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll never miss another video release. Hey, folks, before we get into this video about Joe Gibbs, I just want to point this out. Christmas time is coming up, and if you're looking for some shopping ideas for your person who is a Commanders fan, or even if they're not a Commanders fan, take a look at this. It is Catastic Art. It's my wife's Etsy store. She is a graphic designer. She designs these bags, Washington Commanders bags. I mean, look at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous bags. Her design. And she just does a great job with this. She does other types of designs as well. And it's not just Washington stuff. She can design any other type of bag for any other team, any other, whatever it is. If it's Roblox, if it's Minecraft, she has sold a bunch of those as well. She is fantastic. And she has also done some blankets, football blankets as well. And you really need this for the playoffs. One of the blankets that she has done, and this is very high quality stuff, but the graphic design is top notch. And it's one thing about it, she doesn't just throw JPEGs on something and rolls with it. She makes sure that all the pixels, everything is extremely high quality. She has a very discerning eye for her artwork, and so just check it out and see if you can support her. And I'm telling you, you'll get something very high quality for your dollar. That said, let's get into today's video. So we're talking about Joe Gibbs. What made Joe Gibbs so successful? Well, some of you guys probably would say, well, for one thing, he coached in an ancient time, back in the 1980s. And, honestly, I still can't believe that the 1980s were so long ago. I guess as a kid growing up in the 80s, it just doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was. I mean, I'm getting close to 50 years old, so I guess it has been that long ago. And that being said, it's not that, yes, the game has evolved in those decades, but still, there was very stiff competition. There was some elite players that Joe Gibbs had to have his team play against. And so what made him so successful as a head coach? I think one thing, and there's several things. So one thing that I want to point out is the fact that he had an outstanding general manager in Bobby Beathard. Bobby Beathard was able to go out and find those diamonds in the rough. It wasn't just being able to know who to pick in the first round. It was Bobby Beathard being able to go out into those latter rounds, undrafted folks, guys that he would pick up off of other teams that were castaways from other teams, and find good quality players and be able to bring those players in, and somehow these players fit the mold to be champions on these Redskins teams. And Joe Gibbs then knew how to, of course, worked them into the system and knew how to get the most out of these players. But it came to the point where Joe Gibbs, while of course head coaches are going to have some say in the talent that they bring in, Joe Gibbs basically would tell Bobby what type of players he needed. Bobby would go out and give those players. But Joe Gibbs, he stuck to the coaching, right? But here's the other thing with that. It wasn't just Joe Gibbs sticking to the coaching. It was Joe Gibbs spending almost his entire time at Redskins Park, planning, looking at game film, and just going through everything over and over again with his coaches until like 3 o'clock in the morning, sleeping on a cot there. And just, you've heard the whole story. You can go and watch some of the, the America's Game specials from the NFL Network, and you can hear all of that. So, Joe Gibbs was a hard worker. He was very dedicated to the team. That's what he did. He was highly dedicated, but he was somebody who was very well respected by his players. So here's the thing. He was, I guess you would call that a player's coach, but yet a little bit different from maybe the definition of what you would call a player's coach today. And players respected him, because he just had that fatherly notion about him, I guess. Everybody wanted to play for Joe Gibbs. He wasn't the type that would, go in and have to use a lot of foul language or anything like that to get his point across. But yet he was firm. You never even saw him really, raise his voice. He was calm, but yet he was, he would get a little animated sometimes, but his animation on the field a lot of times was like this, whereas, we kind of make fun of Ron Rivera because we see Ron Rivera like this on the field all the time. But Gibbs seemed like he was always in control of things. What was the other thing that made him so successful? I think because even in games that the Redskins were winning, he always made adjustments where adjustments needed to be made. And, just because that the Redskins were winning doesn't mean that he's just going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. If something wasn't working, he's going to make adjustments because, the Redskins wanted to keep the pedal to the metal and they want to win these games. And Joe Gibbs was like that. Every single time we always talked about, you'd hear like John Madden, Pat Summerall would be like, Redskins are one of the best teams that will, as far as like making halftime adjustments. And that was always true. They always made halftime adjustments. And, that's something that we've screamed about with this current coaching staff, maybe more specifically on the defense, was that seems like there's never any adjustments. Let's continue to do the same thing, because we're just so stubborn. We know it's going to work. It's the players' fault because they're not executing. But sometimes the scheme is just not working. You got to make adjustments. And so Joe Gibbs and his coaching staff knew that they would make adjustments where adjustments needed to be made. And finally, I will say this was something that era of football had an advantage on that this era of football didn't have, was the fact that you can go out and grab players and stick them on IR and basically keep them there. They don't count for the 53-man roster. And so you could eventually keep those guys on there until you need them. And, Gibbs was able to do that. Beathard would go out and be like, hey, we can get this guy. We'll just stick him on IR, and maybe the guys were injured. But, we can stick them on IR for a little bit. And then if we need them, we can activate them, and so maybe, I don't know how legal that was back then. I guess it was legal, but certainly you can't do that nowadays. But they were able to take advantage of that and, bring in some high quality free agents, guys off of waivers whenever they needed to. So they knew how to get the guys they needed, high quality guys, whether they're free agents or whatnot. And just finally, Joe Gibbs he had such an attention to detail back then. That's something that you would always look at with Bill Belichick with his coaching, was that there was such a fine attention to detail. And that's the reason why that Bill Belichick was so successful as a head coach, at least until recent years, was that there would always be something, that he would look at that he could be able to get an advantage of during the game. And Gibbs was kind of the same way. It wasn't anything nefarious. It was just the fact that he knew how to get the advantage by looking at the details, being able to, take advantage of whatever it was he needed in order for his teams to win. He was very smart, a very smart coach, but very respected coach, and everybody respected him. I think the only time that he probably didn't get much respect was from Buddy Ryan. Buddy did not get along with Joe Gibbs, and Joe Gibbs did not get along with Buddy Ryan at all. Those two guys were on opposite sides of things all the time. And so I guess you would call Buddy Ryan was Joe Gibbs' nemesis. I mean, he just did not like him whatsoever. But, Joe Gibbs went on to, of course, have the Washington Redskins in 4 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl wins, countless, NFC East championships, more winning seasons than not. I mean, it was just, you expected the Redskins to be deep in the playoffs, at least in the playoffs, almost every single year under Joe Gibbs. I mean, it was a fantastic time to be a Washington fan. And so, being able to hopefully get a coaching staff like that back now that we have a competent owner who's going to try to go out and find the right guys to put into the right positions in the front office, who will in turn hopefully find us the right coaching staff, and who will in turn eventually get us into having the right players in place. I think we'll get there. And then once we get there and you start seeing the team winning on a regular basis, you'll start to kind of understand why we love Joe Gibbs so much and that era of football. And it was fantastic. Anyway, I just want to do this video because, Joe Gibbs just had a birthday here lately. So, happy belated birthday to Joseph Jackson Gibbs. He's one of the reasons why I became such a big Redskins fan. Between him and John Riggins, Joe Theismann, those guys, honestly, it was John Riggins and Joe Gibbs. Those two guys were, I don't know, they were such an influence on me as a 6-year-old watching football. I don't know what it was about those guys, but they just really had an influence on me. Never gotten to meet either one of those guys. I would love to meet one or both of those guys at some point in my life, just to tell them what type of influence and reason why that, they persuaded me, I guess, to become a lifelong Redskins fan.
But with that said, folks, that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Were you a longtime fan? Do you remember those glory years? And that said, folks, I will see you in the next one.